Good evening. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation at Shelter Rock. We are so grateful to be hosting this multi-religious, multicultural event. It is part of our Unitarian Universalist tradition to honor all the different faiths, as well as embrace diversity and the interconnected web of all life. We Unitarian Universalists seek a more just world, a world of tolerance and understanding. Tonight is one step forward in that direction. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Martin Melkonian. I'm the president of the Long Island chapter of the Interfaith Alliance, and I teach economics at Hofstra University. The Interfaith Alliance of Long Island would like to thank the Unitarian Universalist Congregation at Shelter Rock for its hospitality, and especially the Social Justice Committee. Thank you, Elaine Peters and the staff at UU for your support and assistance. I'd also like to thank the co-sponsors of tonight's events, the Islamic Center of Long Island, the Long Island Alliance for Peaceful Alternatives, Hofstra's Long Island Teachers for Human Rights, and Pax Christi Long Island, as well as Move On. And thank you for the wonderful Turkish oud music that was performed as we entered the hall. Thank you so much. I guess I should introduce your names, Scott Wilson and Nick Mondoukas. Thank you so much. Well, the Interfaith Alliance was, at least the Long Island branch, was founded in 1997. We're part of a national organization. Our mission is to, one, promote the positive role of religion as a healing and constructive force in public life. Secondly, challenging those who manipulate and distort religion to advance an extreme political agenda. And thirdly, building a revitalized mainstream religious movement based on active civic participation. We gather here this evening to mark Independence Day and to celebrate religious liberty and tolerance. We are here to renew our commitment to holding America to that promise in the Declaration of Independence. We also come here tonight together with heavy hearts to mourn the deaths of the 9 people killed at the Emmanuel AME Church in South Carolina. We call for love to overcome hate. As the New York Times reported, the victims' family members have drawn national attention for the grace that they have shown, offering blessings, love, and even forgiveness to the man who was accused in the killings. An example, they say, was set by the people who are suddenly ripped from their lives. Let me read their names. Ethel Lance, Sharota Coleman Singleton, the Reverend Clementa Pinckney, Tawanza Sanders, Cynthia Hurd, DePayne Middleton Doctor, the Reverend Daniel Simmons Sr., Susie Jackson, and Myra Thompson. I think we should take a moment of silence. Let's take a minute of silence to remember these wonderful people. I'd like to quote Rabbi Waskow of the Shalom Center. This 4th of July, the United States can relapse into renewing and repeating all the ills that are heirs to slavery, ills born of racism, ills of domination and inequality and violence that continue to afflict not only African Americans, but many, many others as well. or we could hear and speak and act on the ever-broadening words of the Declaration. All men, all women, all rich, all poor, all blacks, all whites, all Christians, all atheists, all Jews, all Muslims, all straights, all gays are human beings, are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. So, let's hear from a wonderful Hofstra student, Chris Reilly, who's going to entertain us for a few moments with his guitar music.
Thanks very much, guys, for having me. This one's called What I'll Be, and it's one of mine, and it's about judgmental people and their impact on parts of the world. Nothing's really specific, but my life, I guess.
Vision now inside my brain, and we shall be rid of all judgment and pain. People think these things, they don't hesitate, but it's a messed up perception they create, and I don't even know what I deserve now, but I know it is not theirs. No, I don't even know what I deserve now, but I know it isn't this. It isn't fair, it isn't fair, the way that they all look at me. I feel the glares, I feel the stares, 'cause they act like I can't even see. 'Twas not that big of a decision, but they think that it makes or breaks the man. I'm not the only one with vision, though sometimes I think I'm the only one that can see this. Favor now to ask of you. Just let people do those things they want to do, and if they harm no others, then to each their own. Because we share this place we all call home, and I don't even know what I deserve now, but I know it is not theirs. No, I don't even know now, but I know it isn't this. It isn't right, no, it's not right. The way they all remember,
you, Chris. That was wonderful. Our next speaker, or first speaker, will be Imam Dr. Negem, who is an advisor to the Grand Mufti of Egypt, representing the Islamic Center of Long Island.
Good evening and peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It is indeed a pleasure to be at this welcoming environment, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And it is indeed also a pleasure to talk about a very important topic, at least also to the Muslim community, religious liberty. Basically, America has been and continues to be a land defined by both religious faith and religious liberty. And it was not a recent progression. Rather, this vision of America was clear in the mind of our founding fathers. So they stipulated in the Constitution, and they made sure that this value is kept throughout the history of our nation. Usually, I tell my Muslim congregants that religious liberty in America is a blessing. And each and every blessing has to be met with homework. And the homework is to give thanks to God who brought us in this country, and we are enjoying this religious liberty. And unfortunately and sadly also that even in majority Muslim countries we don't have this religious liberty. But we do have it here. So each blessing we have to thank God for. But thanking God is not just in words, but in action. And one thing that we have to make sure that this blessing is protected and preserved is that we work together against a fringe minority who would like us to believe that faith traditions are on a collision route, who would like to tell us that faith traditions came primarily for hate, who also are propagating inhumane version of the religious tradition. So part of our thanking God for this blessing is that we have to work together to make sure that this blessing is intact and preserved for ourselves and for our children and grandchildren. My dear brothers and sisters, it is religious liberty that is at the core of Islam. This might sound a bit strange to some of you, and indeed for the people who are spreading hate and murder. But this is at the core of the religious faith. When God created our forefather, Adam, He breathed into him from his spirit, from his soul. And hence all of us, the children of Adam, have a remnant of this divine breath. And hence all of us, regardless of our faith affiliations or our ethnic backgrounds, all of us are worthy of reaching up to God in the routes He assigned for human beings. It is this dignity and sacredness that we should cherish and celebrate. And this is something that the Quran has made clear in an ambiguous way, that to each community God assigned a way to him. We have to celebrate this diversity. And Islam did not stop just right there by acknowledging or tolerating other faith traditions, but has advised us Muslims to go one step further. And that step is to reach out and to engage other faith traditions for two purposes: to love God, to enhance this love of God, and to also love the neighbor. And it is this vision that are founded also in our prophetic model, who hosted Christians in his own mosque and offered them a platform to do their religious service. It is this vision that also was kept by Muslims everywhere they happen to go. I come from Egypt, where we have a substantial Christian, we don't say minority, but citizens, and we enjoy mutual rights and responsibilities before God. Let me conclude by saying that we are in a world replete with challenges. And one of the challenges that are being posed to us is the erosion of this religious liberty by bigots, by Islamophobes, by anti-Semitists, and by hate speech. And we owe to ourselves, and we owe to our congregation, and we owe to our children to stand together, to extend our hands together, to collaborate and cooperate together, so that this religious liberty is maintained in this great country. Thank you.
Well, we have a last-minute pinch hitter that Habib introduced me to a few moments ago, and we're very pleased to have a young man. His name is Travis Nelson. So why don't you come up here, Travis? He's from Hempstead, a community near ours. Very pleased to hear what he has to say.
Good afternoon, esteemed guests. My name is Travis Nelson, and it is my privilege to speak to you tonight. We are all here to recognize and address a pestilence plaguing our society: hatred in the form of racism. Since the classification of race was instituted in our society, it has become an overwhelming obstruction to the unity of all peoples. However, beginning in Britain in 1833, during the Industrial Revolution, worldwide institutions of oppression began to end, and the movement for civil and equal rights became a popular theme among those peoples once oppressed. In our respective nation, leaders like Medgar Evers, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., W.E.B. Du Bois, and Booker T. Washington became the face of the African American movement, while Cesar Chavez and Diego Rivera led Latin American movements among those peoples. Yet one thing became very clear. After being rewarded their rights, we turned a blind eye to the fact that racism still existed in our world. It has taken the death of Trayvon Martin and countless other innocents, such as those attending church in the brutal South Carolina massacre recently, for us to become aware that the plague of racism still lingers in our contemporary society. The aforementioned realization is what has inspired the militants of our citizens, epitomized in Baltimore, an approach that raised awareness but was nonetheless the wrong way to deal with our situation. Love always conquers hate, and as a Christian, I am charged to love my neighbor as myself. Thus, it has become clear that in order to mend the wounds of racism, we must bring ourselves together with love. The late Nelson Mandela once said, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart." I, for one, refuse to let the melanin difference between my skin and another's separate us, and I refuse to spend the rest of my life living as a color. We are more than we are defined to be. We are one nation, under God, indivisible, with the pursuit to grant liberty and justice to all. It is my prayer that this mantra binds us together with cords that cannot be broken, from everlasting to everlasting. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis Nelson. That was beautiful. Our next speaker is Stephen Markowitz. He's the chair of the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County. So it's with great pleasure, Stephen.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. And to those celebrating the holiday, Ramadan Kareem. We have about 40,000 kids a year come through the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center up in Glen Cove. And if any of you haven't been there, I urge you to come and visit. But one of the questions we ask these kids is, how many races of people are there? And we get guesses, 3, 5, 10, 15, whatever. And the end of the discussion is we tell them that's the wrong answer. The answer is one, the human race. And that's all there is. And that's the lesson that we try to teach. And here on Long Island, where the demographics are changing so rapidly, when the face of Long Island is so different, just looking at this audience, this is what Long Island is today. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, Asians, Caucasians, African Americans. If we don't learn how to get along with each other, if we don't learn that we're all Americans, then we have no hope for the future. What I'd like to do in my few minutes is try to talk about how history affects how we live today and the issues we face today. Let me give you a couple of examples. Because remember, you've all heard the expression, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. And unfortunately, we're watching too much repetition. November 9 and 10, 1938, in Germany, an event took place called Kristallnacht. And in that one or two nights, over 1,000 synagogues were burned to the ground throughout Germany. Now, if you're listening to the news, since the killings in Charleston, something like almost 100 black churches have been torched. Is that history repeating itself? Religious institutions being burned because somebody didn't like someone else's religion or race or whatever. And how about in 1939, a ship sailed from Germany to the United States with refugees trying to escape what was going on in Europe, the Holocaust. And that ship was called the St. Louis, and it came to the United States with about 1,000 passengers aboard. And what happened? First went to Cuba, and the Cubans said, no, you can't come in. Then it came to the United States, to Miami. It was right outside the port of Miami. People were trying to get in to save their lives. And what did the United States government say? No, you can't come in. And went up and down the East Coast, and everyone said, you can't come in. And that ship went back to Germany, and most of the people on that ship died in the Holocaust. Well, how different is that from what's going on now in Asia with the Muslim group called the Rohingya minority in Myanmar. These are a Muslim group in a Buddhist country being persecuted simply because they are Muslims. And they too are trying to escape from what they're suffering. And they, as you've heard, read in the papers, they boarded ships trying to escape to Indonesia, Malaysia, Australia, wherever they can get to find some refuge. And what do those countries say? No, you can't come in. History repeating itself again. Another example, which applies to our country. In 1939, when the Holocaust was first beginning, and people realized how serious this was, legislation was introduced in the United States Congress by Senator Robert Wagner of New York and Representative Edith Rogers of Massachusetts, which would allow 10,000 unaccompanied Jewish children under the age of 14, 10,000 in 1939 and 10,000 in 1940, to come unaccompanied on a temporary basis into the United States to try to seek some refuge without their parents, remember, and only a temporary basis. They had to go back as soon as whatever was going on ended. And what happened? The Congress said, forget it, no way. And the legislation never passed. And most of those 20,000 children, my guess, were among the 1.5 million that died in the Holocaust. Well, how different is that from those unaccompanied Latino children trying to escape violence, death, poverty, gangs, everything else they had to deal with, coming in unaccompanied in the United States? And what is the reaction of our society? Not very positive. Here on Long Island, which is getting the second largest group of those kids, we saw what's going on. School districts worry about how they're going to pay for them and so forth. Arms not wide open, that's for sure. Again, history repeating itself. And let me give you just one more example. You all heard about the Korean comfort women. In World War II, the Japanese set up brothels throughout the countries they conquered and utilized local women, mainly Koreans, but Filipinos, Dutch, others, and forced them into sexual slavery in those camps. And up to today, the Japanese government still hasn't come to terms with this whole thing. These women suffered terribly, thousands and thousands of women. What people don't know is that exactly the same thing was going on in the concentration camps in Europe, where Jewish women were forced into exactly the same kind of situation, forced sexual slavery. The sexual persecution of women then is still going on today. What is going on in Sudan and throughout Asia, throughout Africa and Mideast, where in any of these situations where countries, where terrorist groups or others, or what's happened in Lagos with the Boko Haram, where the hundreds of girls were kidnapped, the sexual persecution of women as a tool of war continues to go on today. And we have a situation in our own country we've read about where how women in our military are very often subject to great sexual persecution and abuse, and we don't know how to deal with it. I'm giving you all these examples only because we come here with great thoughts, and I think everybody in this room is committed to the same thing, of diversity, of tolerance, of getting along with each other. But we found the most effective way of teaching these lessons is not just to talk about how much you love each other, but talk about, see the consequences of what happens. The Holocaust did not start with concentration camps. The Holocaust started with name-calling, bullying, prejudice, graffiti, all the things that we see today going on. We know what that led to. I'm not suggesting that we're facing another Holocaust. But when we have Muslims and Hispanics and gays getting attacked and whatever right here in Long Island, we know we still have a problem. We know we have to deal with it. And I want to say how grateful I am to the Interfaith Alliance for taking a lead and speaking up on these things. And I pledge the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center to this mission. And I think I join with each of you in wishing that when we get together next year, we can talk about, we're not going to talk about 9 people killed just because of the color of their skin in a church in Charleston. Again, history repeating itself. But we're going to talk about how much better things have gotten in the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen Markowitz, for your important remarks. And now we have another wonderful song to be presented by Chris Reilly, our Hofstra student.
This next one is not one of mine. This is a Tallest Man on Earth song, and it is called Burden of Tomorrow. It's one of my favorites.
Oh, I was sent to find a lonesome place where I was lost but left to trace by carving riddles on the lonesome vine. But rumor has it that I wasn't born. I just walked in one frosty morn into the vision of some vacant line. Once I held a pony by its flying mane, and once I carved a shadow to the turning game. But I will fight this stranger that you should fear, so I won't be your burden, not tomorrow, dear. On the border of the sun, swings on the chambers of her guns. She tries to shoot the cord and light the path, but I'm just a blind man on the plains. I drink my water when it rains and live by chance among the lightning strikes. Oh, once I held a glacier to an open flame, and once I carved like wildcat on the turning game. But I will fight this stranger that you should fear, so I won't be your burden, not tomorrow, dear. Should fear, so I won't be your burden, not tomorrow, dear.
And now we have with us someone who I consider, and most of us consider, Long Island's foremost civil rights attorney, Fred Brewington. Very pleased to have him come to the microphone.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. It is a pleasure to be back here in this house of worship and to be present with so many friends. It is also a pleasure to be here again with my friends from the Interfaith Alliance and the UU at Shelter Rock. I think that my gospel group sang here at one time, didn't they? I think we did. And I remember at that point just looking at this wonderful room and saying, what a great place. I want to start out by thanking Travis for shedding some light on a historical component of what may be important for us to consider this very day. I also want to thank our musician, Chris, for your music, because it is the artists that allow us to have the freedom sometime to say the things that we won't say with our own tongues. You also ride a pretty mean skateboard, too. I caught him in the parking lot. Yeah. You know, when you took the spill, I said, I sure hope that's not the guitarist. But we come this evening to talk about issues that are facing us all. We are in this thing called America together. And as we stand with each other, not against each other, but with each other, we have a challenge before us in this year 2015 that we may have never seen before. Even though history does unfortunately sometimes repeat itself, we're at a precipice, if you will, that brings us to quite a different time. You see, the ability for me to speak to somebody in California is instantaneous. Before, that didn't happen. The ability for young minds to be molded or mismolded by information that is misinformation is more prevalent than it ever was, and that's happening instantaneously on more levels of social media than we can even imagine. Because I don't know half the names of them. I got left at Twitter. We are in a challenging time, all of us, you and I, friends. And it's with that backdrop that I stand before you with a bit of a challenge. And Marty knows this. I'm rarely in a place where I'm not going to try and put somebody's feet to the fire. But this is in a loving way. Because we are at a point now where we have been talking the talk of tolerance, and I think that we need to now move on to requiring respect. Because when I tolerate you, I do it begrudgingly. I accept you because I kind of have to, or I really don't want to and don't care to. When you leave this place, I'm going to suck my teeth and say, so glad he's gone. You don't ride the skateboard as well as he does, by the way. But when we teach respect, when we teach the common core of human dignity as part of the norm and not the exception, we start to then create a world that has what we all claim it to be through all the major religions, one that is created for the benefit of being a gift to one another. But when we talk the talk of tolerance, and I don't mean to pick on our theme today, but I want to pick up on that because it's a dangerous word when we say, I'm going to tolerate you. It allows those who feel as though they are endowed with the ability to treat people in a way that is not human to do so in the name of, I tolerated that person or those persons. I'll tell you that right now there's a media outlet, Fox News, who's fanning the flame of intolerance by claiming to be engaged in tolerance. There is very little respect going on with regard to that abuse of the airways and God's gift of multimedia. But what we need to really do and come as we speak and talk with each other is realize that there is a great danger going on now, because we are not just dealing with ignorance, we are dealing with intelligent and sensitive ignorance. 3 I's. Intelligent because folks think they know something. Insensitive because they don't care what you say. And ignorant because they really don't have a clue about what's really going on. But you can't tell them anything, and that's one of the things that we just saw down in Charleston. We saw a young man that had been so infected that disinfecting was not going to be likely, because the people that were around him, that saw the signs, that saw the flag, that saw and heard what was going on, did absolutely what other people did at other times in our history. They did nothing. And it was that failure to stand in the tide and push back and correct if necessary that allowed a young mind and perhaps a young life to go completely off path and be ruined forever, as well as ruining the lives of countless thousands of others that were touched by just 9 in the Charleston church. We are not today facing that for the first time. There are many people in this room that I know put some skin in the game when it came time to deciding what you were going to do when things happened in Birmingham. And 4 little girls were killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church out of the same level and stupidity of ignorance that led us to what we faced just 2-3 weeks ago. That's my signal, I guess. But one of the things I want to try and stress as we celebrate this day of the 4th of July is that there are some dangerous things going on in our own midst that we all have an obligation to stand and face. Not with shoulders stooped or head bowed, but with face up and chin straightly directed toward the enemy. And the enemy, my brothers and sisters, are some of our neighbors. The enemies, my brothers and sisters, are some of our family. The enemies, my brothers and sisters, are those that are talking and saying and acting in a way that we know just is not right in terms of trying to make this world a better place. And out of fear, we don't say anything. I've been guilty of it, and I'm sure there's some people in this room that would raise their hand with me that there were times when you could have, but you did not. There were opportunities to say, take that someplace else, but instead you went someplace else. This is a time of challenge for all of us, black and white, Asian, Indian, East Indian, Chinese, Asian, Korean, all the labels that we've placed on each other. But in this time of challenge, the real question for us all is, where will we stand when that opportunity comes for us to push back? It may be as quick as the stepping out of this room when we hear it. It may be as obvious as some of the things that we see on that network, Fox News. But when we do, what will you do? How challenged will you feel to overcome the fear that says, it means that I may have to put something of my own out there, and I'm afraid. Well, I just want to let you know I didn't come just to challenge you. I came to also provide you with a sense of hope. The sense of hope is that we are here in this place today and that there are some very, 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 very good people in this room. And with the good people in this room and the greatness that we have collectively, this is where the spark begins. A spark that causes us to remember what Independence Day is really about. The spark that does take us back to those words that led men who didn't even think about us to pen things on paper that some people claim is as close to what they worship as our God. What happens when we're faced with that challenge? And my suggestion is that on this 4th of July, it's a wonderful opportunity to push back, raise questions, and not let that triple I, intelligent, insensitive ignorance, to go unchallenged. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. But in this time of challenge, we all have a responsibility to stop the talking and start the walking. God bless you.
Thanks, Fred. It's always an honor to hear you speak. And we are also lucky to have a wonderful young lady from this congregation, Jasmine Steele, who is going to address our group. Come up, Jasmine.
Hi, guys. My name is Jasmine, and I'm one of the many youth at this congregation. Okay, so here at UU, we're not limited to just one practice, one religion. We accept everyone, whether you're a Christian, Hindu, Jewish, the list goes on and on. Here, nobody tells you like what to believe in, or no one like pushes you to like figure it out or anything like that. No. During the years I've been coming to this church, I was taught many religions, and I was taught to like understand them, what they practice, what they do. And in the 8th grade, I was told to write a credo that explained like what I've come to believe in. And then I was still questioning, I wasn't that sure, and I still, trying to understand like all the different like faiths, and yeah, I haven't exactly come to my conclusion yet. But I mentioned that in my speech that I gave to the church, and they were all like really accepting, and they really didn't mind that I haven't like figured myself out yet. And this congregation, it's filled with so much love and like so much support that I've ever experienced. And no matter what, we're here for each other, like we're here to support each other. And I really hope that everyone gets to grow up in such a supporting community like I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine, for those very thoughtful words. Beautiful. And now, another treat. We're going to hear some more Middle Eastern music with the oud and the guitar.
The three instruments that I brought today are part of the culture of the Middle East. And the first one is a qanun, which is spelled K-A-N-U-N, it means Arab, law in Arabic. Maybe because all the other instruments have to tune to it because it has so many strings. And it's played with little finger picks. This instrument this particular one is from Turkey. It's called a saz, but similar instruments are used throughout Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. It's a long neck lute with quarter tone frets on it. It's called an oud, and it's an ancestor of the lute, which is an ancestor of the guitar. So this is sort of the granddaddy of the guitar, and it's used all over the Middle East. And it's nylon strings, bent neck, sort of a very sexy shape. And I'm with Nick Mandukas, who's playing the grandson of the oud.
Thanks so much, Scott and Nick, for a beautiful kind of music that I think is not so frequently heard within these walls. Lovely. Thank you for being here. And now we have another treat, a young woman who is from the Bethany congregation, Mark Lukens' church, who is a student at McGill University. And she is going to read us a section of the Declaration of Independence. So, Joan Herrmann, please come up.
Thank you. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the power of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that to achieve these goals we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Thanks, Joan. Wonderful. And finally, our final speaker is Reverend Mark Lukens, whom is no stranger to these walls, and very proud to have you talk about the final portion of our get-together.
Following Fred Brewington. I think I had a nightmare like that once. I'm not really sure that I have very much more to add to what's already been so eloquently said this evening, except maybe, of course, thank you all for coming and for sharing this celebration. And maybe, because I'm a preacher and I've got a pulpit, so maybe to reiterate a simple truth, that despite her many failures to live up to the aspirations that are so nobly expressed in the words of our founding documents, despite bigotry, persecution, and violence, despite the cancer of racism and xenophobia and religious discrimination that remain today, as they have throughout our history, too much a part of our shared national life, we still do have a great deal to celebrate in this country on this occasion. Because however narrow their original purpose, however imperfectly conceived and carried out, the founders of this nation have gifted us, and indeed the entire world, with a vision of a nation that was founded on principles that all human beings are indeed created equal, that they are endowed with their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that in their commitment to the defense of those rights, whether on the battlefield or in the ballot box or in the street, as a sacred honor and an obligation of any and all who would seek to create a society that is just and moral and free. And that struggle, as we all know, takes on new urgency every time some new act of terror impels us once again to recognize our many differences, or to pay attention to the other in our midst. And it's a battle that is waged, as it always is, as Fred said so eloquently, against those whose worldview is dictated by ignorance and by fear. Fear of the other. Fear that they might lose their place of power or privilege. Fear that the society that they thought belonged to them, that for too long lived and moved according to the rules and rhythms of their faith or their race or their culture, isn't doing that anymore. That those others who once knew their place no longer do, but are clamoring instead to realize their birthright as citizens and, more importantly, as human beings. And my friends, in a very real way, I have to say, those fears are justified. Because as hard as it may sometimes be to see, especially in the wake of atrocities like the Charleston terror attack, that which they are defending is indeed coming to an end, as it must. Because through the darkness of oppression and injustice is breaking the light of a new day even now. A day conceived more than 200 years ago in a room in the city of Philadelphia. A day that is the realization of the dreams of religious refugees like my own ancestors, who braved the ocean in small, what are today would be called small boats, to start new lives free of persecution. Of the dreams of men and women who were chained together in the stinking holds of slave ships. In the dreams of people from places all over the world who were courageous enough to risk their lives, to try and realize for themselves and for their kin the promise of a life of liberty. The promise of a society in which we don't have to pretend that we really are all the same, or that every creed or culture is just another road up the same mountain, but rather one in which we are free to choose not only our own path, but our own mountain. A society in which our task as a people is not to seek uniformity, but rather to learn to embrace and to celebrate our diversity, to understand and see our differences not as an obstacle that we have to overcome, but as a divinely bestowed gift that was given to us to enrich and empower us as individuals, as a community, and as a nation. And because it is only when we have the will and the courage to take on the hard and painful task of securing the rights of the other, the stranger, the one with whom we disagree, that we can begin to truly live up to the vision that our founding documents say is the birthright of all human beings. And yes, we know that way back then in Philadelphia, they didn't really mean all human beings. But you know what? Maybe that too is part of the miracle and the gift of this nation. Because somehow, despite the narrowness of the vision of a group of privileged white Protestant and Christian men, despite our brutal legacy of religious intolerance and persecution, despite the human holocaust of chattel slavery and Jim Crow, despite Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and homophobia and the rantings of the religious right, Fox News, the human quest for liberty, articulated in the Declaration of Independence and quoted in our Bill of Rights, continues to inspire and to embody the true spirit of a nation that, at its best, struggles to transcend even the prejudices of those who first gave it life. And that, my sisters and brothers, that is the spirit that we celebrate this evening, even as it inspires and impels us to continue the struggle to bring about a society in which liberty and freedom of conscience are a genuine reality for all of our people. A nation in which human beings, citizens and non-citizens, people of every race, every creed, every sexual orientation, every ethnicity under the sun can breathe the heady air of liberty, their rights assured, their dignity upheld. And it is for us together. It is our task, and especially the task of those of us who have lived that privilege for far too long, to realize that vision, to be the country our ancestors dreamed of, and to make for those who come after us a future that is truly free. Because that is now, as it was then, our sacred honor, to stand up and to speak out, because that is what it means to be an American. Thank you very much.
What a way to end the evening. But we have one other thing. We're going to do a candle lighting, and hopefully some of the young folks will come up and help us with the lighting of the candle.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep down in my heart, you know I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Deep down in my heart, you know I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Deep down in my heart, no, I do believe we shall live in peace someday. One more time. We shall live in love.